World War I was one of the largest conflicts ever in the world. It brought together a number of countries based in Europe but drawing in other parts of the world in a large conflict that killed millions of people over its 4 years.
By the summer of 1914, war in Europe wasn't a question of if, but when. The major powers had divided into two hostile alliances. The Allied powers, consisting of Britain, France, and Russia, and the Central powers being Germany and Austria-Hungary. But this wasn't just about territorial ambitions. It was about nationalism, imperial rivalry, arms races, and decades of mounting fear and suspicion. All they needed was a spark.
Some people would say that World War I was caused by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, but that was really just the catalyst for something that was, I hate to say inevitable because I think nothing in history is inevitable, but it was the kind of precipitating event of a large series of militarism, of imperialism, of competing alliances that were kind of joining together in larger formations.
And those competing alliances soon grew. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the assassination, and with Germany's backing, declared war on July 28th. Russia mobilized to defend Serbia. Germany declared war on Russia and then on France. When German troops invaded neutral Belgium, Britain entered the conflict. Within weeks, what began as a regional crisis in the Balkans had engulfed the entire continent. The Ottoman Empire joined the Central Powers in November. Italy, despite its previous alliance with Germany, switched sides and joined the Allies in 1915. Bulgaria joined the Central Powers that same year. And in 1917, the United States entered on the Allied side. So this was now a truly global war. And yes, that included Australia.
Australia became involved in World War I basically because Australia saw itself as part of the British Empire. It was part of the British Empire, and when Britain went to war, it was almost automatic that Australia would go to war. And so the Australian Prime Minister at the time that the war was declared said that Australia will support Britain to its last man and its last shilling.
The war that followed would be unlike anything the world had seen. On the Western Front, from Belgium to France, the conflict ground into a brutal stalemate. Soldiers dug trenches that stretched for hundreds of kilometers and barely moved for years. New technologies turned the battlefield into a killing field. Machine guns mowed down advancing troops. Artillery shells fell like rain, and poison gas drifted in the air. But the fighting spread far beyond Europe's trenches. Battles raged in the Middle East, Africa, and across the world's oceans. For Australia, one campaign would come to define the war: Gallipoli.
April 25th, 1915.
Gallipoli was a military disaster, but it became our national legend. The ANZACs landed in difficult terrain and were soon pinned down by Turkish forces on the cliffs above. 8 months of intense fighting followed.
It's shocking when you think that, 8,000 men, Australian men, died in the Gallipoli campaign, but it was also reported internationally and back in Australia as this amazing triumph. These raw colonials had shown themselves capable of great bravery, of great ingenuity on the battlefront. It really became the moment that Australia felt that it was recognised on the global stage as a great fighting force.
April 25th is now ANZAC Day, when we remember all those who've served in war. While Gallipoli ended in 1915, the war itself ground on for 3 more devastating years. By 1918, all sides were exhausted. Germany launched one final, desperate offensive, but it failed. One by one, Germany's allies surrendered. When the Armistice was signed on November 11th, 1918, the scale of devastation was almost incomprehensible. Over 16 million people were dead, soldiers and civilians. Another 20 million were injured. More than 60,000 Australians had been killed. Over 156,000 were wounded, gassed, or taken prisoner. Entire communities back home had lost their sons, fathers, and brothers.
And it's really interesting to me that a lot of the First World War veterans, the last ones to die, like in the sort of late 20th century, early 21st century, they were always ardent pacifists, and they talked about the futility and the terrible nature of war. There was not a lot of talk about our glorious ANZACs. It was about war is a terrible thing.
The war didn't just end lives, it ended empires. The map of Europe was completely redrawn. New nations emerged from the rubble: Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and others. Germany lost territory and its overseas colonies. The Ottoman Empire was carved up, reshaping the entire Middle East. World War I was supposed to be the war to end all wars. It clearly wasn't. But it remains one of the most significant turning points in human history. The moment when the old world order shattered and the turbulent modern age truly began.